Welcome back to the Redraft Show. Patent pending, whatever. We're going to come up with a title at some point, but for right now, the title today on this side of the dirt is going to be wide receiver rankings for week 3. Say that 5 times fast if you're brave enough and record it. So we're here today to talk to you about what's going on, the happenings and not happenings for week 3 of the NFL season. Hopefully it's going well for you. It's going better than it is for me in my home league where I am 0-2 and had the most points scored against me twice. But hopefully we can get a little bit, we can turn our luck around, have some more progress instead of pain heading into this 2025. Before we get into this, please, if you're so inclined, leave a like, subscribe, comment. All of that helps the algorithm. But let's get to it. So today we're going to start off with wide receiver rankings. Surprise, surprise. It's going to be CeeDee Lamb at the wide receiver 1 overall. Now, the model has him as the wide receiver 1 as well. I like him quite a bit just because, just to throw this out there, to be honest with you. All right, the Chicago Bears have one of the worst defenses known to mankind. They're 30th against wide receivers. This is a 49.5 point total, 24 implied points. And CeeDee Lamb gets a team that is currently allowing 0.87 fantasy points per drop back in man and 0.82 fantasy points per drop back against zone. So CeeDee Lamb confirmed awesome, and he gets one of the worst defenses. As I stated, they're 30th against fantasy wide receivers thus far in 2025. Now, that could be skewed by the Amon-Ra thing, the Amon-Ra happening. If you were Mark Say from that, kudos to you. But we don't have to go any further with that. Let's go to my wide receiver 2 on the week, which is going to be Ja'Marr Chase. Now, this is a little bit contrarian because of the fact that, we've got Jake Browning. We've got a backup quarterback. We've got a tough defense in Minnesota. They're currently 7th against wide receivers. But here's the thing. You just don't bet against Ja'Marr Chase. Sure, this is quite honestly not one, it's not my favorite play, but the upside here is incredible. So he's currently projected for 29.8 points per the quality stats model against this 7th ranked passing defense. So yeah, Ja'Marr Chase, you're not going to sit him ever. So let's just get it out. Let's just get it out of the way. My wide receiver 3 comes as a bit of a surprise. We're 7 spots different. Jackson Smith-Njigba against the New Orleans Saints. This is a 41.5 point over under with a 24.5 point implied point total. So I'm buying the breakout, man. We can't sit here and pretend like this is regular stuff that's going on. And if we're going to get into it, let's just get into it. The full Jackson Smith-Njigba breakout that we all wanted for Drake London is happening, but just for another one who we might be forced to call light skin Al-Gaib after this. I'm not going to lie. But that's a diabolical and very dynamic situation. Moving on to my wide receiver 4, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown at the Baltimore Ravens. This is the shootout of the week, the only total over 50 for the week. And so we've got 23 implied points. They're coming in, they're underdogs, 5.5 point underdogs against the Baltimore Ravens. Me and the model are both locked in as a wide receiver 4 on the week with a 30-point projected ceiling. So really bullish on him this week. My wide receiver 5, I'm going to stay in the flames. I'll be honest with you. I took my earbud out because I need to get serious with you right now. A lot of people are panicking on Brian Thomas Jr. Me, Chef Doer, Chef GPT, not so much. Still my wide receiver 5 on the week, coming in against the Houston Texans, currently 27th against fantasy wide receivers with a 44.5 point over under. So it's close enough to be in a high scoring event. We've got 23 projected points. And really, it's just the feels bad vibes for the Jacksonville Jaguars and Brian Thomas Jr. owners, because you could have selected Puka Nacua or Amon-Ra St. Brown. You'd be a lot happier right now, but happier days are ahead for my wide receiver 5. My wide receiver 6, and could have been my wide receiver 1 on the week if not for this advantageous matchup for CeeDee Lamb, is going to be Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is one of my favorite plays this week. The Kansas City Chiefs play man cover 0 at 2 times the highest rate of the next closest team in the entire NFL. And Malik Neighbors has a 4.73 yards per route run versus man coverage. This is a match made in heaven. Russ found the moon ball. If the Chiefs decide to play cover 0, this is a recipe for absolute generational wealth with Malik Neighbors. Moving on to my wide receiver 7 on the week is going to be Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers against the Detroit Lions in the aforementioned shootout. So we've got 2 top 7 wide receivers in this game so far with Zay Flowers. Now, Zay Flowers is a unique case because he's not only dominating in first read target share, but he's also dominating against man and zone. So against zone, which we know that Detroit's one of the most man-heavy teams, but you have to make a concession here. And I'm sorry, I'm going to move through these faster, but this is an important point that needs to be made. And that is that Zay Flowers is a guy that dominates versus zone coverage. So if you're going to play zone coverage, which you have to against Lamar Jackson, or just seed 150 yards rushing or whatever Lamar decides to do that day, you're just going to have to give that up. So if the Lions are forced to play more zone coverage, he absolutely eviscerates it. If they decide to play man coverage, he's going to be awesome there as well. I believe he's still over 4 yards per route run against both man and zone coverage, but that is just Zay Flowers is good at football. Quality stats told you first. I was in denial, but it's better to be right or be wrong and then right instead of never right at all. So I'm going to get on the right side of this, and Zay Flowers is my wide receiver 7. Moving a little bit more quickly, we're going to go Drake London against the Atlanta Falcons, or excuse me, not against the Atlanta Falcons, against the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are the 31st ranked wide unit against fantasy wide receivers. I'm a little bit more bullish. It's still real to me. The last time that he faced off against the Carolina Panthers, he ended up with 18 targets, I believe, 139 yards or 159 yards or 150 yards or something of that nature, and 2 touchdowns. He was a wide receiver 1. He put up like 40 points that week. So Drake London, my wide receiver 8. My wide receiver 9 is going to be Teteroa McMillan. Teteroa McMillan taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are the worst team against fantasy wide receivers. And so I'm a little bit more bullish. I told you last week when he was my wide receiver 11, that was much, much higher than the model. I can go grab that number and have that for you here shortly. But all that to say, this guy is a guy that I am convinced we are watching a superstar in the making. This is not a drill. He is my wide receiver 9 ahead of Mr. Puka Nacua, who is taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Puka Nacua is one of the most special talents at receivers, just completely efficient. It's the Christian McCaffrey argument, but at wide receiver. It's a perfect receiver for the perfect system. He steps into the Cooper Kupp role. He's currently the wide receiver 3 in the model, the quality stats model, and he's projected for a ceiling of 29.9 points. But I think that this Philadelphia defense is going to stymie them a little bit. They had the Rams number last year, and so I think that is going to be more of the same. Moving on to my wide receiver 11 on the week, it's going to be Nico Collins. Nico Collins taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars in a 44.5 point over-under. Now, they're kind of middle of the pack, but they do play a lot of man coverage, which favors Nico Collins. He has a massive upside this week, projected for over 30 points for his ceiling outcome, and that's what you want to see. We saw some encouraging signs last week. CJ Stroud was able to find him when the offensive line held up for the Texans. So Nico Collins, my wide receiver 11 on the week. My wide receiver 12 is going to be Ladd McConkey, Ladarius McConkey, the 2nd and 3rd, 1st and 15th of the month. Now, it's been a little quiet for Ladd McConkey. He only had 5 catches and 5 targets last week. He has massive upside here with being projected for 27 points for his ceiling outcome, but we don't get the volume that we thought. I said this early on, so, I'm saying it, but here's the deal. We might just not be able to get a ceiling outcome. Keenan Allen's still awesome. They're incorporating the other weapons. Now, if Herbo continues to drop back and sling it, we could be in business. But right now, Ladd McConkey, my wide receiver 12, the model has him as a wide receiver 9 on the week, taking on the Denver Broncos, who play a massive rate of man coverage, one of the heaviest man coverage teams in the league, which bodes well for bodes well for Ladd McConkey because Ladd McConkey is one of the best separators versus man coverage in the NFL.
If you're looking for more FFD, sign up for a Patreon or YouTube membership and get access to the ADP, Dynasty rankings, the rookie draft kit, and extra shows every week.
Moving on to my wide receiver 13, Mike Evans taking on the New York Jets. New York Jets do allow 0.87 fantasy points per drop back and play man coverage at one of the highest rates in the league. So Mike Evans also has a 54.5% win rate versus man coverage. So Mike Evans is still dominant. It's just not all the way turned into fantasy production yet, but we're going to get there. So Mike Evans, my wide receiver 13 on the week. My wide receiver 14 is going to be Garrett Wilson in the same game. So you got a lot of bunches early here in this cohort. And what we get here is Garrett Wilson taking on a Tampa defense. It's currently 29th against fantasy wide receivers. He's got a 25-point upside and a floor that is absolutely deplorable with Tyrod Taylor. I think the volume and this game having an opportunity to go over the 49.5 point total is something that I'm very interested in. So Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 14. My wide receiver 15 is going to be Justin Jefferson. So Justin Jefferson in that game against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are currently 4th. Man, that does not feel right. Seriously. Anyway, we're not going to dwell on that right now. 41.5 point over under. You've got them projected for 22 points currently in this game where they are 3-point favorites. So this could be a boom performance. We got to see what Carson Wentz has left in the tank, but I've watched enough Carson Wentz playing football to know, look, man, this could go really well or it could not. I'm not really sure how it's going to go, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and just say, hey, we'll see how it plays out. Now, my wide receiver 16 is going to be Cortland Sutton. This is a game that has a 45.5 point over under with 21 point implied point total for the Denver Broncos. But if you watched that Chargers team play, man, they are scary on defense. Jesse Minter and the boys are out there doing things and stuff. Moving on to wide receiver 17, it's going to be Rome Odunze taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Rome Odunze is the breakout darling sensation, and I am apparently 18 spots higher. This is the biggest outlier play of the week. Rome Odunze has been awesome this year so far. I mean, we had the 11 target, 7 catch, 128 yard, 2 touchdown game this past week. He's got 3 touchdowns in 2 games. I think that I just personally believe that this is the breakout, and it's happening. Now, Rome has been awesome against man coverage, but struggled against zone coverage a bit. And Dallas plays the soft cover 3 that Eberflus loves to no end. So we're talking about Rome Odunze as my wide receiver 17. The model likes him a lot less than I do, but I am fully bought in on the breakout. I told you so. I'm not going to say I told you so anymore, but I just did. So anyway, my wide receiver 18 on the week is going to be DK Metcalf taking on the New England Patriots. So we came crashing back to earth. It looks good for DK, though. We might get a record number. We might even get 120 targets on the season for DK Metcalf in this Arthur Smith offense. I say that and highlight that number because it's never happened before with him as an offensive coordinator. But you're not supposed to say that part out loud. So, I mean, Casey, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Moving on to my wide receiver 19 on the week, it's going to be Emeka Egbuka for the same reasons that Mike Evans was my wide receiver 13 on the week. This Jets team is absolutely putrid in man coverage right now. They're allowing 0.87 points per drop back. Moving on to my wide receiver 20, it's going to be Devontae Adams. Devontae, Hall of Fame gold jacket, lining it up, but it's a tough matchup for the Rams against the Philadelphia Eagles. But the beautiful part of this is the fact that, man, listen, this talent always wins. So we can't count out guys like Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. That's why he comes in my wide receiver 20. At wide receiver 21, we have George Pickens in that juicy matchup where CeeDee Lamb is the wide receiver 1 against the Chicago Bears. We can move on. My wide receiver 22 is going to be Ricky Pearsall versus the Arizona Cardinals. I like that matchup quite a bit. I think Ricky Pearsall, coming off of a quiet week with Mac Jones at the helm where Juwan Jennings kind of stole the show, I really like Ricky Pearsall. I'm 10 spots higher than the quality stats model for the week. My wide receiver 23 is going to be Waymo against the number 20th ranked Baltimore Ravens defense against fantasy wide receivers. This is a guy that I want to, we're going to talk about it on Bet On It, the gambling show that we have over on the FF Dynasty. We're going to talk about that here shortly because I like some alts for Jameson Williams if you played the alt on Jameson Williams last week, it would have cashed with an anytime touchdown. But we're not here for that. We're here to talk about Terry McLaurin, which is my wide receiver 24. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders are 28th against fantasy wide receivers, and this has a 44.5 point over under. I'm a little bit more bullish because it's a matter of when, not if, with a guy as talented as Terry McLaurin. Now, my wide receiver 25 is going to be Calvin Ridley. Now, we were singing the praises, and so far it's just been a rough ride, but we get Calvin Ridley this week against the Indianapolis Colts, who are allowing 0.84 points per drop back, fantasy points per drop back. This is a matter of time for Calvin Ridley, guys like Calvin Ridley and Alec Ayomanor in a divisional game. We get an opportunity for a get right spot against the Colts defense that has been, they've allowed some production to the wide receiver position. They're kind of middle of the pack, but we're due for a boom game. We're due. I said the biggest difference in rankings between me and the model was going to be Odunze, but it's actually Calvin Ridley because I'm 20 spots higher and I have him as my wide receiver 25. My wide receiver 26 is going to be Keon Coleman taking on the Miami Dolphins. Keon, they're currently third against fantasy wide receivers right now, but I'm struggling with this because honestly, let's be real with each other here. Okay. This is one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. So Keon Coleman, I was in on, we got the week 1 breakout. Then week 2, they didn't need anybody to do anything because the Jets just laid down and played dead. So we get this in what could be a favorable offensive environment. We got Keon. We can get Keon for a red zone, like a big red zone target, or, the ball just ricocheting off people because that's what it tends to happen. So anyway, Keon Coleman, my wide receiver 26 on the week, my wide receiver 27, same game, Thursday night against the Buffalo Bills, traveling to Orchard Park in New York, 49 point over under. Tyreek Hill is, coming off of his 100-yard game, one of the few that he's had since the start of 2024. And I think that, while he does average 3.09 yards per route run against zone coverage, Buffalo is one of the stingiest zone coverages. I mean, they did have the week against the thing with Zay Flowers, but there was a lot going on there. It was just a poor showing, but this is not the Ravens. So anyway, my wide receiver 27 on the week. I'm not gonna derail us here. Let's stay on task. 27, Tyreek Hill, 49 point over under. We like the environment and the fact that he's good against zone. So my wide receiver 28 is going to be Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Deebo Samuel has been a revelation. Fat Deebo got on the Ozempic. Now he's skinny again, and he has one of the highest upsides on the week. He's got a 28-point upside ceiling for the week per the model, and I like that. Love hearing that. So I've got the guys flip-flopped again. Last week I had Deebo Samuel ahead. This week I've got Deebo Samuel slightly lower than Terry McLaurin, so we'll see how that plays out. Coming in at wide receiver 29 against the Denver Broncos is going to be Keenan Allen. Now, Keenan Allen's probably going to draw Riley Moss or Jahdae Barron in coverage. So with that being the case, I think that he could have a field day if they're able to or decide to feature him in the game plan. Now, there is the caveat that this could be just a knockdown, drag-out fight between two elite defenses. The Denver Broncos are going on the road, and they're going to be licking their wounds after a heartbreaking loss to what we thought was a joke in the Colts, but now they might be for real because Daniel Dimes is for real. That's a statement that I'm really saying out loud in 2025. My goodness, that's gross. Anywho, moving on. We're going to move on to my wide receiver 30, which is going to be DJ Moore, Denniston Moore Jr. against the Dallas Cowboys. Do it if you want to. This has been a really disappointing thing, and I think that there's a new wide receiver one. There's a new sheriff in town, partner. And it's going to be, Rome Odunze. But DJ Moore's a top 30 play against the Dallas defense. It's extremely soft and doesn't really do anything to take anything away from wide receivers. So my wide receiver 31 is going to be Juwan Jennings. Now, Juwan Jennings posted an obscene win rate versus man coverage and had the breakout game. It looks like he's getting healthy again from the calf injury that sidelined him. I mean, calf contractilitis, but he got his money. He's now in the lineup. Him and his orange hair or whatever it is are going to be a top 31 wide receiver play. I said 31. That's, absolutely absurd. Another guy that I find myself not really, intrigued by that I've been a huge fan of their real life NFL talent is going to be AJ Brown. AJ Brown's my wide receiver 32 on the week. I'll answer questions in the comments if you want me to, but this passing game is so imaginative that I have to start adjusting my priors. They're eighth, and the Rams have been eighth against fantasy wide receivers thus far, shutting down the likes of Calvin Ridley and Nico Collins. My wide receiver 33 on the week is going to be T. Higgins. T would be higher than this, but they don't have a quarterback, and this is a 41.5 point over under. My wide receiver 34 crashing back down to earth is going to be Calvin. My wide receiver 34 on the week is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is, honestly, like, what's the truth? It's got to be somewhere in between, but he's my wide receiver 33 on the week. And I think that we're going to start to find a level here. He was awesome in week 1. It was very disappointing in week 2 because that game got out of hand so quickly. So maybe we get a competitive environment here and we can see the truth about Marvin Harrison Jr. being more along the lines of what we saw in week 1. My wide receiver 35 is going to be Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi Meyers is a guy that I'm really intrigued by because I feel like, this is the most solid play. His ceiling play is so high this week, 25 point ceiling. He's the wide receiver 53 in the model though. So maybe I'm missing something here, but I still think he's a top 36 play. And my last top 36 is going to be, my wide receiver 36 is going to be Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle taking on the Buffalo Bills. So he makes the top 36. It seems like maybe potentially, possibly, perhaps that the Dolphins offense might be coming to life. And some other notables that don't make the top 36, but I'm still really intrigued by this week. Travis Hunter against Houston. This is just kind of, we're waiting on this offense to look like the Liam Cohen iteration, but it just might not happen. De'Ami Brown, same game against the Texans. Kayshon Boutte, my wide receiver 42 on the week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've been fairly stingy, but whatever. Khalil Shakir, Wan'Dale Robinson. These are all guys in that 30 or 40, 39 to 50 range that didn't make the tops. One critical oversight that you'll understand as a Titans fan, if there is a Titans fan listening to this, is I have Michael Pittman at wide receiver 47, and that's just a terrible idea if you understand the lore behind Michael Pittman when he sees a Titans uniform. It's almost like Nick Bosa whenever he sees a quarterback that has melanin. But anyway, yeah, and some guys that are just kind of a little bit lower. Devonta Smith's my wide receiver 45 on the week. Hollywood Brown is going to be my wide receiver 48. Like Troy Franklin, I really want to buy the breakout. And if you listen to the waiver show, you know that I am really excited about Troy Franklin. But this is against that Chargers defense that plays a ton of too high. And I don't think that this is the environment for him. The Colts played a lot more man coverage, so that favors him a lot more. Listen, if you made it to the end of the video, we just covered roughly 50 wide receivers in less than 25 minutes. If you're still here, please give us a like, comment, subscribe, download on the podcast side, FFD Radio. If you're not signed up for ProfitX, please go sign up for ProfitX today using promo code FFD. If you want to see more of me, just look here or over on the FF Dynasty. And you can find me on the Twitter X. Follow me at Chev90. And I have a link tree for the Quantum of Chevis. And I'll be back with you tomorrow for the running back rankings. Listen, I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about this. Just before we get out of here, just some crazy upside plays this week. Again, we mentioned CeeDee Lamb. We mentioned Malik Neighbors. We mentioned Mike Evans, who's due for a boom. And the last play that I would want to throw at you for potential this week is Zay Flowers. So Zay Flowers against the Detroit Lions. So, hey, if you made it to the end, you got 4 of my favorite plays for the week. So I'll leave you. There's ball watchers and there's ball knowers. Assign yourselves accordingly. Until next time.